Cincinnati's Rock Legends continues on Star 64. In 1944, a local entrepreneur, Sid Nathan, started his own recording company at 1540 Brewster Avenue in Walnut Hills. The company, King Records, was among the few labels that helped rhythm and blues proliferate, laying the groundwork for later crossover labels like Motown.
King Record was more than just a record company. It was a company that filled a need for both artists and consumers that nobody had filled before. And what I mean by that is that in the 40s and in the 50s, the people who were the poorer people in this country, black people and Appalachian people, no company, none of the big companies were interested in catering to their musical desires. King Record and really Sid Nathan realized and understood that these people were entitled to the music and that there was a market there.
Sid Nathan was one of the first people, he was probably the first person who was responsible for getting black music on white radio stations, in addition to the black stations. In those days, the music was called race music. And Sid Nathan had the intestinal fortitude to go out and try to get this on the white radio stations.
And the company grew in 4 or 5 years. It was the 6th largest company in the country, which is pretty phenomenal, that a small business started in a city like Cincinnati could become that big that quickly.
And the man ended up having everything self-contained under one roof. Everything under one roof. You could record today, the record would be on the street tomorrow.
When you come out of the door, you would take maybe 10, 15 steps and you were into the factory. And we saw how they were made with the glob of plastic on this thing and the press down, and there it is. And then they had another section that did the album covers or the EP covers or the sleeves, whatever. It was very interesting. You know, I never knew it happened any other way, you know, because that's all we saw.
I remember the facility, King Records, as being kind of a dump, but it was very conducive to good recording. It had that special ambiance. It was grubby because Sid was grubby, and it was a perfect match. Sid Nathan was King Records, and King Records was Sid Nathan.
Sid Nathan was macho. I mean macho. He was the boss man. He would do anything to make the company work and make money for himself. I don't care what it was.
This man had guts. That's one thing I like about Sid. He had guts. He would take chances.
Sid Nathan is a caricature of all music people, with the cigar, with the gruffness, the brashness. He talked dirty.
He was about 5'4". He weighed 250 pounds or more.
Sid had very bad eyesight, wore real thick glasses, short, dumpy guy.
Big cigar, big glasses, thick glasses. You couldn't, I mean, bottle glasses, you know. Very thick.
He had asthma and he smoked cigars from the time he got up until the end of the day.
He was somebody no one else liked. No one liked him.
He was loud, sometimes obnoxious, but I think he really was a man who had a big bark and less of a bite. He just screamed and yelled, but he really had a giant heart.
Most people didn't like Sid too well, but me and him got along real fine.
And he had this very gruff voice, and everybody kind of imitated him. I know a lot of the workers there did.
You spent all that money recording the worst thing I ever heard in my life.
Instrumental, nobody buying instrumental.
And that was a Sunday we were in there cutting, and Ray Pennington was the engineer, and Sid Nathan come in and said, "Did they pay you yet, Ray?"
And what did Sid Nathan really sound like?
King, however, and Lois and their affiliates are my business, and I'm going to see that they're run to the best of my ability.
Although Sid Nathan recorded such future Hall of Famers as Clyde McPhatter, Jackie Wilson, and Hank Ballard, he made at least one error in musical judgment. He hated the music of a group called James Brown and the Famous Flames.
The man had a record company, but he had dead ears. Couldn't hear a hit to save his life.
Hank Ballard and producer Ralph Bass were together when they heard James Brown for the first time.
We both heard Please, Please, Please by James Brown on a little old ragged tape recorder. But instantly, we both knew it was a hit.
So Ralph Bass drove down to Georgia to see James Brown perform.
There was one of the guys who sing lead crawling on his stomach on the floor, going from table to table where there was a pretty girl sitting. Please. And that's what I heard on the dub.
He said, would you come up and record? So we called and we decided we'd drive from Tampa to Macon, from Macon to Cincinnati, which was about 600 miles. So all total was right at 1,000 miles, a little over 1,000 miles we drive. And we recorded Please, 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 and the flip side, Why You Do Me Like You Do, which was equally as strong. So Ralph Bass, he recorded me, and then Sid Nathan fired him, said, we're not gonna let James Brown say please, please 40 or 50 times on the record because it doesn't make sense. So Mr. Bass said, well, I quit. So the record hit, then he had to call Mr. Bass back and beg him to come back.
James Brown recorded hundreds of songs for King during his 11 years with the label. In 1965, when King Records was nearly bankrupt and about to close its doors, James Brown came through again with the funky sound of Papa's Got a Brand New Bag and literally saved King Records from bankruptcy.
So 2.5 million copies in about 2.5 weeks. Put him back in business. He was folded up, I closed the door, and put him back in business. But Sid Nathan didn't believe nothing. He only believed in me after we recorded Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. And from that point on, I could do anything I wanted.
James Brown was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. And the man who signed him to King Records, Ralph Bass, was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991.
There wouldn't have been a King Records if Ralph Bass hadn't been there. Ralph Bass is a Russian Jew with black ears. This man could hear a hit. He was the master at hearing hits. If he was the ears for King Records. He was King's salvation.
I had a feeling for things. That's how I signed them. I got excited. It was a real feeling.